Hey guys, welcome back to the new video. My name is Igor and you're watching 3D Innovacije. So today we have a real treat. A being that stands at the pinnacle of all races. A man that never apologizes for what he is. In fact, he once said, "Apologize to me that you were born into my world." Escanor, the lion's sins of pride. The man whose power rises with the sun itself. Now I know what you're gonna say. The later seasons of the anime went to shite because of the horrible animation. Yeah, but even with that, to me Escanor was always the most interesting character in the entire series. The power, the presence, the confidence, the pride. I would have a really hard time trying to find any other character similar to him across all other animes. The only one that actually pops into my mind now is Vegeta, the prince of all Saiyans. The model was made by artist Kaiden 3D, and there will be a link in the description below so you can check it out. I wanted to do something special with this model, and then I got an idea. Let's light up the sun. This is a perfect model to show you guys how to add LED lights to a figure. In my previous video, we made Hellboy, and there I showed you how you can easily add sound module to your model. You can upload any sound or line and play it by pressing the button, so check that video out if you want to learn how to do that.
All you gotta know is I'm kicking your ass.
In this video, we're gonna get technical again. We're going to add LED lights to the sun. I will show you everything step by step, so you can easily do it on any model you want. It does not need to be this one. Maybe in some future video we will combine both, the LED lights and sound activation, together in one model. The thing is, to add all the components to the model, we need a pretty big base and a clear path to where we want to add LED lights. On this model, we have neither. I will run into quite a few problems along the way that you will not have to deal with if you pick a model with a bigger base. But that's actually a good thing, because we will solve all of these problems one by one. You will learn a lot, and then if you encounter something similar on one of your models, you will know how to handle it. Of course, we will also paint the model, and I will show you how to do that as well. All the colors I used and how to apply them. Actually, here's the list of all the colors I used on this model, and you can find this exact same list in the community posts. So let's get to it. This one is going to be a fun one. So let's print it out first. I think we can skip explaining how to print normal gray resin. You can check out any of my previous videos and you will see my whole procedure. Also, just a quick note before you start printing. If you didn't see it yet, you can skip forward in this video to the part where I show you how you should hollow the pieces in the light slicer, just in case if you don't know. Since we didn't do it in a while, I will repeat the steps I take when I want to get that clear glass-like transparent look when printing with the clear resin. So most likely, after shaking the bottle and pouring the resin into the vat, your resin will look like this, full of bubbles. Do not start the print until you get rid of all of them. There is always a chance that a small bubble can stay and later make a hole in your model. Leave it alone for about 20 minutes or so and let all the bubbles rise to the surface. Most of them will pop by themselves, but for the ones that remain, take a heat gun, a torch or a hairdryer and go over the surface. They will pop and you will be left with a clear resin ready for printing. Usually when printing with grey resin, after removing it from the build plate, I put it in hot water, because it's much easier to remove supports after a bit of soaking. With clear resin, it's better not to do that, especially if the model is hollowed. There are all kinds of minerals in the water and after drying, the surface can look hazy. Just remove supports normally and then clean the models in a fresh, or at least nearly fresh IPA. Do not dunk this into some dirty alcohol that you have not changed for the last 10 prints, because it will tint all the clear resin. Give some extra attention to the hull of the models, fill them up with the IPA, shake them a bit and repeat the process a few times. When you're done, leave them to dry for a few hours or use a dryer like I do here to dry them in few minutes. Now, before I cure them, I like to sand all the pieces. It's easier at this stage because the resin is still a bit softer. Just make sure to wear gloves. Find all the support marks and sand them down. You can start with around 400 grit sandpaper and finish with around 2000 grit. Also, make sure to dry fit all the parts. You will not have a good time if you paint everything and then realize that some parts do not fit together as smoothly as they should. After sanding everything and dry fitting all the parts, we run into our first problem. Yay! As you can see, the model cannot stand straight. It keeps tipping over because the base is hollow and there is too much weight on one side. The second problem is with his X. There is just too much weight at the end of this tiny stick. Even now it's starting to bend, and in few days this X will be below his knees. This is just a design problem. Maybe you could avoid this problem by printing X with very rigid resin that has low flexibility. I must say I don't know which resin is that, but then I think you would have another problem because it could easily break. To avoid all of this, I printed the X on FDM printer using PETG. It would be even better to print it with PLA or some other less flexible material, but even with PETG it's much better than resin. To print it I used bamboo X1 carbon, and the details actually turned out better than I expected. After a bit of sanding it will be pretty hard to tell the difference. As you can see, the FDM printed X is more stable, less flexible and lighter. I will now confirm the path that I want to take with LED lights. I will put all the components in the base and then pull the wires through the flames into the sun. In order to make our lives easier, we will print these models hollow, so let's quickly jump into the lychee slicer to show you how I did it. Here I have all the parts that I'm planning to print hollow that are related to the wiring. I left 2 parts solid so we can do them together. When I hollow the model, I like to use the best quality and a thickness of 2.5 mm. Now, when we inspect the pieces, we can see that at some parts the layers merge at one point, so we're going to decrease the thickness for those parts. Just go piece by piece and check if you have a clear path on all of them. Add the drain holes at the highest and the lowest point of the model. Fit the biggest hole you can, because we're going to use them later for the wires. At the end, do not forget to add inner supports. Unfortunately, we need them or the print will fail, but we're going to break them off later, so make sure to use the thinner ones. That's it. And if you forgot to add the hole for the wire, or you placed it somewhere where it does not fit, do not be scared to take the drill and make it happen, like I did here. All in all, plan your path that you wanna take your wires through and clear it out before you start the painting process. That's it. Now that I did most of the groundwork on the individual parts, it's time to cure them. When curing clear resin parts, do not cure them for longer than 3 to 3.5 minutes, because they will start to yellow. They will yellow even before the 3 minutes are up, but we want to keep it to the minimum. Here you can see the difference between cured and uncured parts. The cured ones to the left got a bit of a yellowish tint. Now let's use Trick to make all the transparent parts shiny, smooth and glass-like. After curing, take the same transparent resin that we used to print those parts and apply it on the model with a brush. You can go heavy, it does not matter, because after applying it we will leave all the models so that the extra resin can slowly pour down from them, leaving us with a smooth surface without any brush strokes. I left them like that like a day before continuing on. Now we need to cure them again, but don't just put them on the plate because they will stick to it and you won't be able to remove them without breaking. Instead, clean up little parts, best the key that goes into another model, grab it with the tweezers and cure it on the UV lamp for like 30 seconds. This will be enough that you can put them on the curing station and not get them sticked to the plate. After curing, you will feel that the model still feels sticky. This stickiness will disappear after we varnish it later and seal everything off. The last part that we're gonna do is to cure grey resin parts with mini homemade UV lights inside of the model. If some resin got stuck in there, this will fix it right up. Okay, now we can continue by adding components. First thing we're gonna need is a battery. Here I'm gonna use 3.7 volt lithium battery. Second thing that you will need is a battery holder. I have two types here. One is smaller, it does not come with a lid, and it does not have those little wings on the side that are useful for grabbing the edges of the model when you're putting it into the base. The good thing is that the wires are already connected to it, but we can do that easily by ourselves also. Third thing that you will need is a resistor. Fourth thing are the actual LED lamps. Here I have some small Dicuno LED lamps in different colors that I got from the Amazon. There is also a little paper chart that shows the voltage of each LED light. We're going to use red LED lights in this model, but you can choose whichever one you want. This will tell us how big of a resistor we need to place between the battery and the LED lights. Here is a simple schematic and we will fill it in as we go on. So we have 3.7 volt battery and 2 volt LED lights. So we need a resistor that will eat the remaining 1.7 volts. In order to calculate that, we need a formula. R equals V divided by I, or resistant equals voltage divided by the current, which equals to 1.7 divided by 0.02, which comes to 85 ohms. We want a safe current for a small LED lights, which is 25 mA or 0.02 amps. So our calculation gives us 85 ohms. The closest resistor we have is 100 ohms, so that is the one we're going to use. If you don't get it, just go and ask ChatGPT, he will calculate it in a second. Okay, let's move on. The last part you want is a simple button switch if you want to be able to turn the lights on and off. To start combining all of this, we will need wires, so grab some. The thinner they are, the better, because it will be much easier to push them through the model. The color does not matter, we're going to paint them at the end anyway. I like this battery holder more than the other version, because it has these little wings on the sides. This means it will be much easier to put it inside of the base and stick it on it. So we're gonna add wires to it by ourselves. You will see two metal plates on each side of the case. Just lift them up, put the wires underneath and push them back down. For the extra security, I'm gonna use electrical tape to fix the wires in place so that they do not accidentally come loose. We have now reached the same point as with the other battery holder that came with the wires already attached. Okay, move everything to the side a bit and let us glue the rocky base parts so we can work on them more easily. Mark the hole that you will need on the battery case. And there will be a lot of dust, so I moved myself to the outside to cut everything. Make a hole big enough for the battery case in both the upper and the bottom base. You do not need to be extra careful here, because none of this will be visible at the end. I fell out of frame here, but what I'm doing is just pulling out all the inner supports from both bases. This will clear the space so we can work more easily inside. Also, do not forget to add the hole for the on-off button switch if you're gonna use it. Now that the base is prepared, we can go back to the wires. You can split the end of the wire coming from the positive side of the battery case into as many LED lights as you want. I'm going to use 3 LED lights, so I'm gonna split it into 3 parts. Just make sure that the wires will fit through the model, which will depend mostly on the scale in which you're printing the model in. What I'm gonna do now is take those 100 ohm resistors and solder them onto the wires. It will look ugly, it will look like child did it, but you know what? It does not matter. The main thing is that the connection holds strong, and I'm going to hide this disaster with shrinking tubes because that's how we do it. The wire coming from the negative side of the battery case will be attached to the on-off switch on one side, and then we add a long piece of wire to the other side. Nice. And before continuing, we're going to resolve that other problem that we had at the beginning. The model was tipping over, the base is hollow, there is not enough weight, so it could not stand straight. To increase the weight of the model, you can use something like sand, but I find it far too messy and impractical. So what I'm gonna do is use modeling clay, the kind of one that dries in the air. First I'm going to put just a little bit of clay around the hole where the on-off switch goes, so we can nest it inside and it holds strong. After that we just push all the wires through the base and continue filling up the base with the clay. Fill up all the empty space in the upper and the bottom base. This is also why we pulled out all the inner support, so we can push it inside more easily. When you're happy with it, glue all the parts together, but do not glue the battery case right away. The modeling clay is moist and it needs time to dry, so the more airflow we have, the better. Before we leave the base to dry, let's just solder the wires to the resistors. Make sure the wires are long enough, because it's much easier to cut them than to extend them. Guide the wires through the next piece as well, and you can fill that part with clay too. I'm going to glue all the base pieces now and add a bit of milliput around the on-off switch, just to shape it and make it look nice. That's it, leave the clay to dry, but I must warn you that since the holes for the air to get in and out are very limited and small, it will take days to fully dry. This is why I used this food dehydrator overnight, and in the morning it was hard as a rock. And the base was much heavier, just like we wanted. Now we can prepare the rest of the pieces for painting. Simply put them on the sticks using the drain hose, and if you do not have any, do not be afraid to drill your own holes in places that will not be visible. Also check this. By pure luck, while making the holes, I decided to make one at the bottom of the kilt. After I did, resin started to flow out. This was pure luck. If this stayed inside, it would eat the model from the inside until it breaks. This is a warning to always double check the models that you get on the internet, buy, or even make yourselves. This one was hollowed, but there were no drain holes for the resin to flow out during the printing. Luckily in this case there was no harm done, so I just cleaned it with alcohol and used those little LED lights to cure it from the inside. But yeah, I will take this as a warning. For the clear resin parts, I do not want to glue them yet, because it will be much easier to guide the wires through the small pieces instead of pushing everything through the one long piece. But I still want them connected while painting, so I can get the smooth color transition from one piece to the next. So to do that, I use these short bamboo sticks to connect them like this. It's not super stable, but it's enough to hold them together during the painting. All the other parts where there are no wires, I just glue together. Oof, and that's it for the preparations. Now we can start the painting. Finally. Now that the clay inside is nice and dry, we can finish it up by gluing the battery holder into the place. I'm going to start with white primer. Paint everything that's supposed to be gold color or skin tone. You will definitely need a few layers to cover the model properly with white primer. As you can see here, the first pass barely makes a difference. Leave it to dry a bit and then do it again, and again if needed. I'm going to use black primer only on the parts of arms and legs where there is no gold color, and on the base of the model together with all the rocks. Now just leave primer to dry for a few hours. Now I'm gonna spray white ink on all the white primed parts. Why? I'm not sure exactly. This white just looks nicer than the white from the primer, I guess. Now the main color. We're going to use polished gold metallic from Vallejo. This color is pretty thin. You do not need to thin it any more than that. Just like we did with the primer, spray it in few layers. There's no way you will be able to cover the surface with just one pass. If you spray too much, it will start to drip and leave nasty marks on the model. Take your time, we want it to be smooth and nicely covered. Do this for all the gold parts. Now we need to add some depth. Spraying a wash over the gold color will kill some glow, but I think it's worth it so it does not look flat. I chose Resin Flash Shade. It's going to give a slightly brownish, orange, reddish glow, which I think fits well with the fire next to it. I would imagine that the fire would make that kind of reflection on the gold color. On the upper armor, I'm going to spray it into all the recesses. Reduce the airbrush flow and try to hit only the deepest parts. For the rest of the parts, I used it on the places where shadows would naturally form, like the back of the leg, the bottom of the arm, and other places where pieces connect. The lion emblem, spray it completely. The shade will flow into the recesses and give it depth. And the kilt, the same thing. Spray it into all the concave areas and recesses. Before you call it done, combine all the gold parts that touch each other, which in this case would actually be just the upper and the bottom armor, and spray them together. We want to make a seamless transition from one piece to another. If you do not do this, the shadows and highlights will not match. After the shadows, it's time for the highlights. I'm going to mix Ice Yellow from Vallejo and Metal Medium from Vallejo. Into that mix I will add just one drop of Greedy Gold. This gives us a nice mix that's much brighter than the gold, but still reminds you of a gold, if you know what I mean. Spray it on all the raised parts. You can see now how it looks when we add a bit of the shadows and highlights to the armor compared to the flat colored golden leg. Add the highlights to all the places where you expect them to be, especially the parts that will shine the most from the burning fire right next to them. The last part is to take polished gold again, mix it with wash medium and spray it over all the armor pieces. This will bring back the shiny golden look, but still leave the shadows and highlights visible underneath. In case you went a bit too strong with the highlights, like I did, just grab Resin Flash Shade again and add it to the areas where you feel shadows are missing. Reduce the airbrush pressure so you can be as precise as possible. That's it! Let's bring the fire to life now. The best way to color clear resin is by using alcohol inks. I have yellow, orange and red from the deep one here, but honestly they all work the same. You can grab some from Temu and call it a day. We start with the yellow and spray it over all the clear resin parts. One layer is enough, the color catches on pretty quickly. After the yellow, I'm gonna take orange ink and spray it only on the raised parts. Do not go overboard. The yellow needs to stay visible in all the recesses and concave areas.
Something in your touch, baby, the way that your body's moving me, and I don't know where this all will go. Oh, nobody knows. Oh, there's something I could.
The last step is to take red alcohol ink and spray it only on the tops of the flames. Now, keep this in mind, it's very important. You cannot change the order of the colors. If you spray red first, and then you try spraying orange or yellow, they will not be visible. They simply will not catch on. Once you go darker, you cannot spray a lighter color on top of it.
This could happen to me, yeah. You came crashing in and out of nowhere.
Also, for the parts that we could not glue together, try fitting them like this and make a nice transition from one piece to another. That's it for the clear resin. Let's move on to the arms and legs, where we used black primer. If you inspect these parts a bit closer, you will see a texture that looks a bit like chainmail. To bring this texture out, I'm going to use chainmail metallic from Vallejo. We want it only on the raised parts, so I'm going to dry brush it. Remove as much paint as you can from the brush onto the paper towel and then lightly go over the model parts. You can see the difference right away. Do that on all the pieces, and then at the end take some neon oil and spray it. The wash will seep into the gaps between the chainmail and give it even more dimension. And that's pretty much it. On the whole model, the only skin tone we have is the head. So let's start with Warwood Purple and use it to cover all the white parts. The purple undertone will give us a good base to build upon. After it dries, take Vallejo skin tone and spray it over all the purple parts. It already looks pretty good, but I want to add a bit of a pinkish tone and make the skin just a tiny bit warmer. So I'm going to make a wash using Rosy Flesh. So 5 drops of wash medium, 1 drop of Rosy Flesh, and a bit of water is enough. Try it on a paper towel before spraying it onto the model. It really needs to be barely visible, we just want to tint the skin tone a bit. The last part is to take some Resin flesh shade and add it to the places where shadows would naturally form, like the neck, under the chin, and a little bit on the side of the face that's facing away from the fire. And that's it, no need to complicate it anymore. Moving on to the base, we can finish it now. First, take some deep grey and dry brush it over all the rocks. Right after that, take some lighter color, like ash grey, and do the same thing, but do not go into all the recesses and tight spaces. Focus on the areas that are visible and would catch light from the sun. After that, take Drakenhof Nightshade and spray it into all the cracks and crannies. This will separate the rocks and make them feel more dimensional. It will look like each rock is its own piece. The bottom of the base is pretty simple, we're going to do the same thing we did for the armor. First, color all the decorations using gold. For the lion emblem, go over the raised parts and leave the inner parts darker. After it dries, go over all the gold parts using Resin Flesh Shade. This is the same thing we did with the armor. We want to match the gold tones so they look the same across the model. For the rest of the gold parts, we just want to create separations between the different pieces of the armor. So take Noun Oil and, for example, on the leg, add it around the strap that goes across the knee. Or on the kilt, add it where the top layer of the fabric comes over the bottom one. Also around all the buttons. Basically what we are doing here is creating visual separation between the pieces that are the same color by simulating shadows where they overlap. On the shoulder armor, I'm just going to add a bit of a crystal blue around the decorations. I must say this looks pretty good to me, but later I realized by looking at the reference photos that this decoration inside is actually silver color, so we're gonna change that a bit later. The axe is pretty easy as well. Since we sprayed it with Resin Flesh Shade before while working with the airbrush, we can make the details pop out by simply painting them with pure gold. So get those zoom goggles, a bit of a greedy gold or some other gold color that you have, and go over the decorations on top of it. For the hand gloves, I was not really sure what to do. I decided to follow the look from the anime and make them gold, although to me it would be more logical to make them dark like the hands and legs, since fingers need to move, and I do not think that they can do that in solid golden armor. To compromise, I used gold, but decided to make the finish a bit different from the rest of the armor. I just took some Noun Oil and add a few layers on top of those gloves. This will kill the golden shine, but still keep the golden look. There are also a few silver parts, like the triple blades on the axe and this decoration on the shoulder armor, like we said. We are pretty much dealing with the final details here, so use crystal blue for the axe handle and add a bit of Noun Oil on top of it to seep into all the recesses of that handle. Now the final part before putting everything together, the head. The eyes on the head are very small, so we will not complicate here too much. I will show you a close-up of how it looks after each step so you can easily follow. First, take black paint and fill inside of the eyes. After it dries, get Brain Matter Beige and do the same thing, but leave a thin black outline around it. For the iris, use Cyborg Brown, and do not just paint the iris in the middle of the eye. If you check the final render of the model, you will see that he's looking to the side. Match both eyes so they look in the same direction, and make the bottom and top of the iris touch the black outline. Now, from what I see in the anime, this Hydra turquoise color matches very closely to the color of his eyes. So use that or something similar and paint the iris. Again, leave the black outline we added in the previous step. This next part is optional, but I always like to add a few tiny lines of color that are brighter than the iris at the bottom of the eye. It just makes the eye feel more alive, because an iris is never one flat color. After it dries, take Cyborg Brown again and add a tiny dot in the middle of the iris. The pupil should be really small and definitely should not touch any of the outlines. For the last step, we're gonna add a bit of a sparkle in the eyes. Use pure white. This is pretty much the only place on the model where I use pure white color. Add a tiny dot in the upper left part of the iris, and it should overlap the pupil just a tiny bit. The hair, mustache, the eyebrows are all the same color, so mix Scruffalo's brown and orange fire from Vallejo until you get a tone that looks like in the anime, and just paint them over. The lips are hiding under the mustache, so there's nothing to do here. Leave everything to dry before varnishing. First, get satin varnish and use it for all the golden pieces of the armor. After that, mix matte and satin varnish in 3:1 ratio and use it for everything else, like the black parts of the arms and legs, the base and the head. The last thing is to take gloss varnish and spray all the clear resin parts. Do this in few layers. Spray one, leave it a few hours to dry, spray the next one and maybe even a third one. This will remove all the stickiness left from curing and it will seal the pieces properly. After everything is dry, take a small brush, put a few drops of gloss varnish into a dish and add it just to the eyes. This will bring them to life and make them look more realistic. And to give a slightly different finish to the gloves, applied pure matte varnish on them. Like we said, we want them to look gold, since that is how they look in the anime, but it does not make sense for him to have shiny golden gloves. Fingers need to move, so we want the gloves to have a different finish from the golden armor. Okay, now the only thing left is to put everything together and guide those LED lights home. Let's start with painting the wires. They're gonna go through the clear resin, so just in case they are noticeable, I'm gonna paint them red with permanent marker so they blend in. Now start guiding them through the model, piece by piece. If you need to move the hole or make it bigger, just drill it, don't be afraid. Do whatever you need to guide them through and glue the parts behind them.
I've never fallen in love so deep. I run, I trip, I fall. I just can't find my feet. If I don't try now, the chance will slip away. I'll bury all my doubts and I won't be afraid. There's something I could never see. Now my heart is open and I believe.
When we get to the last part before the sun, we're gonna hook up the LED lights. The red wire coming out of the LED light should go on one of the wires coming from the plus sign of the battery case. That's the same side where we added the resistors. The black wire coming from the LED light should be hooked to the wire coming out from the negative side of the case. If you're not sure which is which, just try it out by hand, like I did here before soldering them. And here is our updated schema. It's pretty simple. Push all the LED lights into the sun and try it out before gluing it for good. One thing left that was still bugging me is that I used that battery case that has those wings on the side. This means that the base is sitting flat on that battery case and not on the base of the model. To fix that and make it more stable, I took 4 pieces of milliput and added them to the base. After that, I pressed the base down on a piece of a paper towel. This will flatten them and made them the same height as the battery cover, making the whole base more stable. After they dry, you can simply color them with a paint or a black marker. That's it. Oh man, this was one long project. I really hope you learned a lot, and by picking this particular model, which has a pretty small base, I think we hit a lot of problems along the way. Good thing is that we resolved all of those problems successfully, and now if you encounter something similar on one of your models, you can easily resolve them by remembering this video. Also, I will ask of you if you found this video helpful, if you feel like you learned some stuff, and if you like the final result, of course, to hit that like button, comment and subscribe. That will help me to continue making these tutorials for you guys. But enough talking, let's see the final result after all the hard work. Roll it.
I will not be compliant. If you push, I'm defiant, just try it. It is bound to get violent when you walk this way.
我の攻撃が通用しない。我が決めた。我の太陽を飲み込んだ。誰が決めた。震えるさ。決めるのは我だ。死ね。
And that's it. This was a pretty long project, but I really loved working on it. Hope you found some good tips and tricks in the video and that you will make one of your own. If I had to do it all over again, I would probably use a bit stronger LED lights, but this is how we learn, by doing stuff. If you make one of your own, please send the photos, post them. I'm really interested to see how they turned out. Thank you all for watching, I appreciate you all, see you soon in the next video. Bye!